Hi everyone, welcome to another video. So today I did get my Glaminatrix order. I placed this way back at the end of January, but they did say that it was kind of like a pre-order situation, so it would take a while, so they finally arrived. I'm going to start off with the Bobbi Brown Hydrating Eye Cream. At the time that I'm filming this, 21 Days of Beauty is going to soon have the Bobbi Brown eye base on sale. I unfortunately did miss the Persona blushes. I kind of was waffling on them, but they sold out in a flash, so that kind of made the decision for me. And then I'm going to use the MAC primer. So I ended up not getting that. And then I was thinking of getting the Mented Cosmetics lip liners, but those sold out really quickly too, so I guess those must have been more popular than I thought they would be, which is fine. I have not gotten as many things from 21 Days of Beauty as I said I would in my video talking about it, which generally does end up being the case. I actually ended up getting more stuff for my mom and my sister than for myself, which is completely fine. But that's really not that big of a deal, I don't think. Honestly, it's good that I'm spending less than I expected to. Very gently mist my face with some Fix Plus. This mister is so aggressive. That was not a gentle mist. I just attacked my face. My pores are a little bit more prominent today than usual. Okay, and now I'm going to use this e.l.f. color corrector in the shade Peach. Formula-wise, these e.l.f. color correctors are actually not half bad. In terms of actual coverage, I'm not sure. I feel like this peach one is okay. I just have to remember to use it like under everything else because it is slightly too dark for me. But I feel like because it is so dark, it actually does a pretty good job of kind of concealing my under eye circles a little bit. I've noticed if I use color correctors or concealers that are super light, it actually just kind of makes my under eyes look a little bit ashy. Doesn't really cover up the groove, but if I use something that's almost borderline too dark, it almost kind of covers it up better. So I was just buying some PR off of somebody who didn't want them anymore, and I just had to pay shipping, so it was a good chance for me to try some stuff. So in addition to like the Mario foundation and Makeup Forever HD, I also did get the DANESSA MYRICKS Yummy Skin Foundation, which I have actually wanted to try for a really long time. This is in the shade 2G, which I am pretty sure is going to be a smidgen too light for me, but it should match my neck. The inside of my arms, it'll match that. Which is, generally speaking, I try to match things to my neck and to the inside of my arms so that it matches me and my body. So we'll see how this goes. I'll give it a good shake. It is a squeezy tube. I've heard it is pretty full coverage, so I'm not going to use very much. And as usual, I do kind of like to spread it out with my finger. Kind of like the spatula thing that's been going around on Korea, but I'm just using my finger. The spatula from Morphe definitely did not really work that great, which, you know, figures. But I did really like the idea and I could see the potential, so I do kind of want to get the nicer one from Picasso now, which is I think like 20 bucks on Olive Young, so definitely way more expensive, but still I think pretty reasonable. I feel like it'll be a really great way for me to apply my foundation. This foundation definitely feels quite thick and heavy, honestly. I feel like this will be a better mixer. It's actually not that bad with the amount that I apply. You see how little I apply? I'm getting, I'd say, pretty high coverage for such a thin layer. Yeah, it was kind of hard to spread with my finger. It feels really thick. I feel like a foundation like this, I almost want to mix with something like Flawless Filter or Morganite, neither of which I currently have, but they are on my wish list. I think I'm leaning towards getting Morganite. I feel like you can kind of see on camera how it's really not flattering my texture at all. And it also felt and feels heavy, so I'll continue to experiment with this, of course, but I think this will definitely be more of a mixing shade for me, and given how light it is, this will be great for some of the foundations I have that are a little bit too dark. So I'm going to go in with some concealer now, and I'm going to use the DASIQUE concealer palette. I do feel like my under eyes should need not as much coverage as usual. So I'm not gonna go for a super bright under eye today. I'm just gonna kind of try and matte my foundation, see if I can maximize the coverage that I want. I do really like how thin this formula is. I feel like it's very easy to use and blend. It also does build on itself very easily. So I'm applying a second layer here, and this time I'm really focusing on the kind of tear groove, that hollow that I have. I have considered getting some like fat transfer or something, but it's such a delicate area. I just feel like the risks really outweigh the potential benefits. I have heard some real horror stories about people trying to get their under eyes filled in, whether it's with filler or with fat transfer, and because of how delicate and thin the skin is, it's not necessarily something you can bounce back from. Yeah, so you can see I was able to get some really nice coverage. I'm gonna use the Hollywood Contour Wand in Fair Medium. I haven't used this in a while, and I mean, I still do really like it. Like, you know, I'm not gonna lie here, I do like it still, so I'm just gonna use this today. I just feel like compared to Laguna, it is so easy for me to go overboard with it. I just got this during the recent 21 Days of Beauty Day when they had the IT brushes for sale. I did get this. I'm gonna try applying it to the brush instead of to my face. Yeah, I just feel like it's a little harder to blend out because you're applying a ton of concentrated pigment in one place and then you have to blend it out. But with NARS Laguna, I can just already apply, it blends out better and it's not laying down such a dark thing all at once. Nice sheer layer there, just barely applying anything. I also still do not like the sponge applicator, and I will never like the sponge applicator. I do wish I could take it off. It does look nice though, I'll give it that. And then I'm going to use this. I haven't used this yet on camera, but I have been using it off camera. So I definitely like have opinions on it. And I'm going to use the Charlotte Tilbury Matte Beauty Blush Wand. I did say in a community post I would buy it and then do like a first impression / review for you guys. And then I never did because I'm just hopeless, I guess. Sorry, I was holding up the wrong color. I'm going to use the shade Pink Pop. I have pink and peach. I'm going to use pink today. As others have mentioned, this is really not that pink. It can become quite sheared out if you want it to be, so I'm gonna apply a pretty generous amount. Now, I don't feel like it's as matte as I thought it was going to be. I feel like it's kind of more of like a natural satin finish. The Charlotte Tilbury one does dry down eventually though, so I'm not super complaining, but it is not quite as matte as I was expecting. It does blend out really well and it doesn't pick up what's underneath. On the bright side though, you can definitely apply a lot and it's not gonna go out of control, so I guess that's the upside to this. I don't know. I'll talk about this more later in a speed review. It is pretty though, like you can see it blends out really easily. It is really nice. I'm going to use two setting powders. I'm going to use the Huda Beauty one in pink. I'm going to use this to brighten under my eyes, and then I will use the Flower Nose Circus powder in transparent for the rest of my face. And this powder, the Cherry Blossom one, it is very mattifying, so I do always go in with a little bit at a time because this powder can definitely dry out my skin if I am not careful. Now, with how dewy my complexion is and how many hydrating products I stacked, and it is super humid out today, hopefully this powder will help my makeup last a little bit longer today. And I do like this powder because it does set my, like it kind of blurs my texture pretty well. And then for the rest of my face, I'll use a bigger brush. Okay, so now you can see my face is honestly looking pretty matte, which is a good thing because it is really quite humid out today, so. This is the Benefit Precisely My Brow in the shade Cool Gray. Oh my gosh, they are so asymmetrical again. I always do this to myself. Yeah, it'll be fine, especially because once my bangs are on, usually it's harder to tell. Yeah, this'll just have to do. I think this is as good as things are gonna get. Okay, I'm gonna use the NARS Smudgeproof Eye Base in Light. I was looking this up online the other day and it seems like it's not sold anymore. Did it get discontinued? I had no idea. Gee, that's a shame. I think I'm gonna bust out an oldie but totally a goodie. It's gonna be my Natasha Denona Gold palette, which at this point is like so ancient. As you can see, I pretty much exclusively ever used this palette for this side, which is my favorite side of the palette. I pretty much never touch the neutrals because honestly, like, neutral schmutural. But my favorite part of the gold palette has always been the shimmers and everything, and especially Sparks. I used to use that shade for everything, so I definitely have had this for a while, and it's actually still going strong, which is kind of like the most confusing part of it all. So I'm going to use this today. Now, I do believe this palette is technically discontinued. I'm still holding out for my conspiracy theory where she's going to re-release it in MIDI form, because if she does, I will actually rebuy so that I can have it like nice and fresh and matching the rest of my collection. Because I do believe, I remember hearing kind of through the grapevine that she's not going to do that faux leather foam packaging anymore, which thank goodness, because it's so like, it's just kind of cheap feeling, you know? Gold is so good. I don't know why she would get rid of it and never bring it back, because a lot of people really like it, me included. It's still going strong. Like, mine still is really good. I will say the cream to powder formula, which is the shade I'm using here, has never been like as good as her future cream to powders, but I feel like this was one of the first times that she introduced it, so it kind of makes sense that it wasn't as good. But even then, as you can see, I'm still able to work with it without too much trouble. And I will blend it out with a different shade later, so I'm just gonna focus on kind of getting the shape that I want. I thought I washed this brush. I might not have, because it's acting like it's got color contamination. I'm going to go into the more mustardy toned color, and I'm going to use this to blend out the edges. These two shades actually create a very beautiful green right in the middle where they meet, so I do really like using these two shades together. I am also going to go ahead and take this above where I'm going to put the holo down, because I'm leaving this space empty for the Glaminatrix single. Now that I've got the barrister, I have all of my most important palettes in there away from the air to hopefully continue to extend their lifespan, but for the longest time I didn't have that, and these still perform really well. And then I am going to go back into the other brush I was using earlier and just continue to pack on that blue. I feel like this blend could still be improved upon. I feel like on this eye, you can kind of see right here. If I ever have dry patches on my eyelids, sometimes the shadow will stick to it differently than other places. Since it's cream to powder, I can actually work with these with my finger if I want to. I'm not going to right now because I am about to use a shimmer and I want to be able to have a clean-ish finger for that. So I'm going to use the Glaminatrix shimmer now. That will help kind of cover up any choppiness that I wasn't able to fully conceal, and then I can just finish tidying things up later, which, sorry I'm not looking in the camera while talking. Whenever I'm applying eyeshadow, I'm generally really focused on looking in the mirror. This is the shade HM3. I do have two other shades. It does not look super hollow in the pan, I will be honest, but obviously we can't say anything for certain until it's on my eyes. I am going to start off without glitter glue. If I feel like I need it, I'll apply it on the other eye, but it does seem to pick up pretty nicely. Now it did kind of leave, you see how when I drag my brush through it, it kind of created a ridge of pigment, so it feels like it's got a little bit of like a squishiness to it based on my brush. We'll see on the eye how it applies if it feels that way. It doesn't seem too terribly like greasy feeling or anything on my brush though. It does seem to apply just fine with the brush. I don't think I'm gonna need a glitter glue, which will be really convenient. I will say the one downside to those GlamShop Holos is you need some kind of adhesive. They are so chunky, they're so loosely pressed, they will just kind of fall apart on your finger if you even swatch them too heavily. So they are so pigmented and they go on so opaque, but you really need some kind of adhesive. This definitely is not giving that same loosely pressed feeling. I honestly though do not really see much holo. It just feels like a very sparkly shimmer with a lot of different reflex. I can definitely see why they call it holo, but even in real life I'm not seeing it compared to GlamShop at all. Definitely a very subtle holo, so I am feeling kind of let down in that regard because I bought this expecting holo and I'm seeing so little holo right now. Holo aside, this is a very beautiful shadow that is applying very nicely. It does not feel heavy on my eyelid at all. Like, you know, some eyeshadows I've mentioned in the past, like Sugar Drizzle especially, I apply a thick layer and I can feel it every time I blink. I'm not feeling this eyeshadow at all. Very thin, very lightweight formula, which bodes well for the wear time. And I'm filming this at about 4 in the afternoon. So by the time I go to bed closer to midnight tonight, I will have done a full wear test on this and I can leave in the comments how it wore. I have heard good things about Touch of Glam's holos, but I've also heard their customer service is very hit or miss. The processing times are really long, and Touch of Glam's holo prices are just kind of absurd. Sadly though, if you live in America, GlamShop is not going to be much cheaper to buy from because shipping's very expensive. So once you factor in shipping, buying 3 holos shipped to the USA, it's not much cheaper than buying from Touch of Glam, but I do feel like the quality of them is really great. So this is what my eye look is looking like now. Honestly, I do really like it, but I'm just not really seeing I'm not seeing holo. I can kind of see why they call it holo. Like I see like super subtle holo, but it's not obvious. Now I know it is a green shadow. It does have a lot of base to it, but even then, like I've seen swatches of GlamShop's more colorful holos that I unfortunately don't have. I'm so sad. And the swatches of those definitely still seem punchier than this. But it is very pretty, like just the finish alone. Disregarding holo or not holo, this is very pretty and it was so easy to apply and I didn't get any fallout, and I will be able to give this a full wear test today. I am going to now go ahead. I didn't end up needing to use my finger for the shimmer, so I'm gonna use my finger now to just touch up the corners of my eyeshadow look. Just make sure everything is nice and symmetrical. I feel like I need more on this side. This is awkward. I don't like using my other side. Okay, yeah, that's more symmetrical now. Okay, and then I do feel like this side needs to kind of be winged out a little bit more, so I'm just going to take what's left on this brush and kind of taper it out a little bit. And now I'm going to go in with clean fluffy brush, and I am going to go into, I'm going to use this shade up here, which as you can tell I barely use. I'm just going to use this very lightly to blend out everything. I do feel like the browns in this palette look way too similar though, which is why I mostly go into this for the colors and the shimmers. I feel like that's really my only gripe with this palette, so if she ever were to remake it, I would love it if she tweaked it so that the browns were more different, or if there were a wider varieties of blues and teals. I'm gonna use one of the more kind of bluish golds palette. The gold palette does have a variety of golds, and my favorite golds in this palette are definitely the golds with the blue reflect or the teal golds. Those are my favorites, so I'm just going to use that as my inner corner highlight. Now I am using the same brush I used for the holo, so the holo is also going to kind of mix in a little bit, which I'm doing on purpose so that everything is nice and blended together. Yeah, the shimmers in gold are just, they are the reason I love this palette so much. Honestly, the shimmers in this palette are just some of my favorite I have ever had, period. It's also one of the first like truly ludicrously expensive palettes I bought. There's that too. It's kind of like a gateway palette for me almost. This shade is a little bit chunky, so I should use a smaller brush. I'm just lazy. I'm going to use a little applicator and I'm going to go into Sparks. And I'm going to top my inner corner highlight with this to really make it brighter. So that just adds some extra brightness. And then lastly, I'm going to take Sparks on a brush, which it doesn't usually apply super great with a brush, but I'm going to use it just to top off everything. Especially I like applying it right on top of everything. This was like the very first glittery eyeshadow topper I ever used and I fell in love. So I completely and thoroughly blame Sparks from Natasha Denona for my obsession with sparkly eyeshadow toppers ever since then. Even though it literally has no base pigment to it whatsoever. I remember people hated on this shade so much and I was sitting here so confused because I absolutely love it, and you can see how I just literally just throw it on top of everything and it looks amazing. So that shade in the palette is super beat up because I use it so often, and I use it quite frequently. When I use it with the foam toppers, so I really dug into that pan, but it is a very, very well loved shade. Okay, so this is gonna be my eyeshadow look completed. Definitely a color scheme I like to use a lot. Teal and gold. So as I mentioned before, I'm just not really seeing the holo, but just on its own as a shimmery, sparkly, magical shade, it is so pretty and it doesn't feel thick. I still don't feel it, so we'll see how this wears. Okay, so I did my lashes and mascara. I was testing out a new lash glue today and it's not really sticking, so that was a bummer. So if my lashes pop off mid-video, you know why, but I also did put on some lower lash mascara. I used Lash Idole. I did, as you can see, get a little bit, but it's fine. I'm not going to try and remove it because I'll just ruin things even more. I know I tend to do really eye-focused get ready with me looks, but that's just what I like to do. Maybe someday I'll do more complexion-focused looks, but just not in the mood for that right now. So as you can see, I already put on my blush, my contour, and everything, so all I need really now is going to be highlighter and lips, and then I'm just going to be done. So we'll get started on that. So I think for highlighter, I'm going to use this shade from the Solmane highlighter palette. I do believe these are discontinued now, which is too bad. They're really nice. There are some other things I still want to get from Odin's Eye, like the Norin's highlighters I never did end up acquiring. And then there's some of the Solmane 2 highlighters I want, but the shades I want are out of stock and I don't know if they're going to come back. In the meantime though, I do really like this highlighter palette. I do think it is quite nice. I'm using a brush today to see if I can get a more dispersed look, but I personally feel like with a brush it looks more glittery versus if I use my finger lightly it looks more natural, kind of more soft. So I'm not sure if I'm a fan of the brush application, but you've probably noticed by now I very rarely use a brush for my highlighters. I tend to use a finger because I feel like it just looks so much more natural and it emphasizes my texture less, but I just kind of wanted to see if a brush would be good today, and yeah, I think I'll just go back to using my finger. I can barely get away with this on my nose. Not really. Yeah, so I definitely put on a little more highlighter than usual today because of the fact that I tried to use a brush first. So my cheeks do be poppin', but that's okay. They look quite pretty, honestly. So okay, so now for lipstick. So my foundation is not... I feel like it's so humid in the house right now. It's so humid outside today. So I'm right at the place where my AC doesn't want to turn on because outside kind of matches inside, but it's humid. So all the humidity is coming inside and I feel disgusting. You gotta love when that happens. So I'm gonna use the BUXOM lip liner in Incognito, which I just sharpened recently. I'll try this. I do really want to get the new satin lipsticks from Pat McGrath because bow packaging and the new colors seem way more appealing, but I just don't really have that kind of money to spare right now. I kind of just am like, I'll just get it when it goes on sale, I guess. I don't know. This is just kind of an MLBB shade for me. This is the shade Negligee, which, I mean, I really don't wear shades like this often at all because it's such a western nude, but I think for today it's fine because my eyes are so intense. I am going to take a dark lip liner and use it to kind of contour the ends of my lips like I usually do. Otherwise my lips just look so short, so I'm going to contour them. So by kind of really defining where my lips end, I can really make my lips look wider because my lips are so like doop. So now my mouth looks a little bit wider and more in proportion with my face. And I'm just going to kind of just generously apply this all over my face, really just to kind of set things down. Welcome to the South, I guess. And then some setting spray. So I think this will be my finished look with my hair down. I think with my bangs down really helps to hide my bad eyebrow day a little bit better, I think. So I hope you guys enjoyed this look using the Glaminatrix single and some other random stuff in my collection. And yeah, I definitely really enjoyed taking a little trip down memory lane to use Natasha Denona Gold, which I've used at this point. I think this is going to be my third video using it on my channel, which is not a lot, but it's weird that it happened 3 times. So I definitely do have a lot of love for this palette. It's very nostalgic to me, so I'm always happy to bust it out again and just kind of take advantage of products already in my collection. I will of course have in a pinned comment the wear time of the eyeshadow down in the comments, and I think that'll be it from me. So if you guys have any questions or comments, of course as always feel free to leave them. I look forward to replying to you guys down there. I will see you guys in the next video, and that'll be it. Alright, goodbye!